Hey guys, if we reach 1,000 likes, we'll be giving out 2 of our new shirts. All you gotta do is click like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Trixie was always my favorite character growing up watching MLP. You see, I saw a lot of myself in her, for better and for worse, as I think a lot of YouTubers out there do. Believe it or not, our cocky, confident demeanor in videos are often acts. Most of us are relatively quiet, preferring to blend into the background yet yearning for the spotlight, forcing us to almost constantly act out the personas you see in our videos. Sometimes we brag as a defensive measure against those who wish to tear down our professions or belittle what it is we enjoy doing. And that's what Trixie is doing too. She has this obvious false persona of confidence, this very braggy, full of herself persona, but if you peel it away, if you get her to become vulnerable, to trust in you, she's a very fragile person, someone who's extremely emotionally damaged, who's really had a lack of partnership her entire life, it seems. But how did it get to this point? And what led her down this path where she was so unsure of herself that the only way she can feel good about herself is to have someone else feel bad? Sadly, little information is actually out there about her, but there are little bits and clues here and there that the show writers have put in, and I kind of want to make my own little headcanon from that. This isn't so much a theory video as it is akin to Ink Rose headcanon videos, and hopefully you enjoy and we can have some sort of a better insight into who she is, at least through the lens of my eyes. You would think in a world of magic, magicians have no real place. They would just be exceptional magic users who would have high-ranking government official positions. They would be policemen, firemen, and other service jobs. What really is there to magic if magic is real? It's nothing that's hidden, there's nothing that's secretive, it's simply spells that anyone could do given enough practice and skill. But most people in this world can't teleport and do all the advanced magic that we see others do, such as Twilight or Starlight. You see, when they do learn these spells, it is an exorbitant amount of studying, and anyone can become a math genius, but yet not everyone does. You could be the next Stephen Hawking, but you're not studying right now. You could be the next Usain Bolt, but you're not constantly practicing your sprint. Instead of magic being how it is now, a show filled with sleight of hand, it's a mix of skill that you would find in math and that of acrobatics. As such, magic for entertainment is still revered as a highly influential and respected practice, somewhat like a singer or an actor. Great magicians are treated as not only stars, but high nobles, normally having lineage dating back many generations of great users who have done many great deeds for society. Trixie was part of said group, her family being one of them. However, the Luna Moons were never as great as Starswell or Clover the Clever or any of the other greats out there. They were respected, but never really for great social changes or monumental spells or some sort of amazing performance. Instead, Trixie's family would perform for those stuck in the slums and poorer villages. They would get paid little, if at all, normally getting payment in the form of gratitude and food, as their audiences rarely had money. However, they grew a name for themselves in this community. They're golden in the gutter. And while some may scoff at them, many more flocked to them and anticipated their arrival. It was something that they could look forward to in their lives. And Trixie? Well, Trixie was happy with this. She was content. At this point, she's probably a foal even younger than the CMC. But she felt fulfilled in life. She had everything she wanted. A roof above her head, albeit a rather cramped one, and one with wheels to travel from place to place, and a family who loved her. However, that all changed when they finally rode into the city of Canterlot. The city was unlike anything Trixie had seen. I mean, she was used to seeing large villages, large towns even, but never ones as pristine as this. Never ones that didn't have dirt roads. Never ones that didn't have the citizens in rags or no clothing at all. Trixie's parents had been traveling the world for years. They met on the road, had their child on the road, and made their living on the road. But all good things must come to an end. They felt that a life of constant travel was no good for Trixie, and that she needed a stable foundation on which she could grow upon. At first, Trixie was hesitant to accept the idea. This was the only life she knew after all. But she was admittedly sometimes lonely. Since her magic was never actually good enough for her to perform, she would be left in the crowds. But due to the nature of constantly moving, she had no real friends to be with. When her parents were busy, she sat alone with her imagination. She would practice and practice, but she found that she wasn't just a natural at magic. She was told that change would fix all of that, allow Trixie to really study magic, and most importantly to her parents, make some friends who she can grow with. However, the desire for Trixie to branch out would ultimately be the reason for her psychological quirks we all know and love. After eventually settling down and using what little money they have to buy a home that they can live in instead of a cramped wagon in the slightly poorer side of Canterlot, they soon enrolled Trixie into a local school where she could be tutored on not only magic but various life skills as well. It took everything they had, as Canterlot schools aren't very cheap. And in this city, it was seen as a luxury, something only for nobles, as those who were poor were supposed to simply continue the trades that their parents had done. But Trixie meant everything to her parents, and so they would go without food or clothing and anything that they could give away to ensure that she got the best education possible. And so she was enrolled in the second best school, only to Celestia's very own. However, things don't go as smoothly as they would hope. Trixie isn't very good, not with magic, nor with social cues and social interactions. Why would she be? She was alone for a majority of her childhood, but this might have been fine in a place like Ponyville where it's lovey-dovey and everyone's very accepting of one another. Canterlot, on the other hand, is a lot more cutthroat, being more about not only who you know, but who your parents are. And no-name commoner from out of town trying to make friends with other children who belong to decently well-known families was going to fly. This would have only gotten worse when it came time to actually study. You see, Trixie isn't a bad magician. She's just bad at magic that's not for show. She was raised by entertainers, and while their magic is good for a party for children, there was not really a comparison to that of the other students. Grand wizards could summon mythical beasts and do all kinds of very intricate spells. But that wasn't the specialty that Trixie nor her parents were in. They were there to be the little ray of sunshine in an otherwise bleak world, where it was simply work until you're dead. You don't need an elaborate stage for that. No one could afford to go there. You don't need an entire plethora of magical utilities. Children are used to making do with what little they have. But in the city of Canterlot, bigger is always better. And Trixie was most likely picked on because of her lack of versatility and her poor social standing. It alienated her from other children, probably being the root of her psychological damage. This was her first group of kids her age she had extended contact with, and this is how they treated her. As she aged, she grew more and more resentful of the children who mocked her day in and day out. She was constantly bullied and singled out by teachers as an example as a failure. This anger and hatred had fueled her, though, to try hard and do better. However, no matter what she did, she was always working with a handicap. Everyone had money to afford private teachers, or their parents themselves were skilled magic users. Trixie had not the money for tutors, nor the pedigree of her parents. Her parents were happy as simple entertainers, taking what gigs they could, and when they had none, whatever odd jobs they could. Trixie's relationships with them over the years deteriorated. She started blaming them for her problems. If only they were better magicians. If only they didn't pander to kids. She thought if they had no desire to bring their name out of the mud, then it would be up to her. She just needed to prove that she was good enough. No, that she wasn't just good enough, that she was better than everyone else. that they should have never picked on her in the first place, that she was truly a force to be reckoned with. And that's when it hit her. There was only one way for a child to prove her ability to such a high degree, and that was to be enrolled at the finest school in the whole nation, Princess Celestia's School for Gifted Unicorns. When people found out, the bullying was knocked up to 100. It felt like society wanted to ensure that she knew her place. Perhaps they all knew that they were stuck in their own positions and were too scared to try to escape it. And to see someone who had the audacity to try to be more than what she was filled them with anger. But Trixie used this to fuel her. Just like the other times, she practiced non-stop, studied everything she could. She couldn't afford books, so she would eavesdrop outside of lecture halls, writing what she heard down and trying to replicate it. Her magic never felt stronger, her mind never sharper, and her confidence never higher. And as the months passed, she finally was able to apply for the school, and she knew in her heart of hearts she would succeed. When they called her name for the test, she walked through the doors with a confident strut and a cocky smirk. She was ready for anything. Levitation, transmutation, whatever they wanted to see, she would do it, and do it with style. And when she got there, they just said one thing: hatch the egg. They didn't even bother to look up from their clipboards. Trixie was left confused and puzzled. Hatch the egg? What does that mean? Just hatch it? What spell is there that's not banned that would enable someone to force life? Her confidence slipping, her smirk cracking. She stared at the egg, thinking of some way to hatch it, or even if she should hatch it. A spell, or any spell that might... A bell sounded. Her time was up, and she had failed. All that training, all that practice, and this was the result. Everyone being proved right. Everyone who told her she wouldn't succeed. Everyone who told her that she wasn't worthy. She didn't stick around to hear what the judges had to say. She left, crying and sobbing. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she wasn't going to stay in this town. She didn't want to. She couldn't bear to see everyone's faces again, as they knew that they were proven right. She eventually ended up at her house. Her parents gone as normal. She was angry. She was acting irrationally, and she didn't want to stay here anymore. So, she didn't. She didn't have many possessions, so she grabbed what was hers. She took the bed sheets that she had and wore it as a cape. And that's why her cape is always so long, constantly dragging across the ground. And then she took her hat, one of the few gifts her parents had been able to afford to buy her, and she left. Eventually, the skills she had learned, she was able to garner a name for herself, from town to town, amassing a small amount of money for herself to be able to afford her own wagon, to go on tour. She didn't want to be Trixie, but she did at the same time. She just didn't like the past of Trixie, and slowly she started changing it, making stories and changing events. And slowly, as she kept on lying about it to whoever would listen, she started to believe it herself. She didn't know how and she didn't know when, but she knew that she would prove everyone who doubted her wrong. She would show the world just how powerful she was, and she would ensure that they all realized that she was better than them. And the rest of the story? Well, you guys know the rest of the story. As always, guys, I've been Faith and Moliminous. I hope you enjoyed, and I thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Woo! Hey.